Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. I'm joined today by none other than Cozy Snap. Cozy, Grandmaster came out this week, and I gotta tell you, it came out to some excitement. It was a card that provided a lot of utility, a lot of combo potential, but also I think a large degree of frustration where it wasn't quite as easy to play as some might have expected. I'm actually really looking forward to this topic here because I think to some degree for some people, they feel like Grandmaster's underperformed. But I played an asinine amount of Grandmaster, like literally I think 25 hours of this card. Like I can't explain to you how much of this card I've played this week. I actually really like it. I really like it. It's not to say that I don't think that on aggregate it could see a buff in the future. I would be surprised to see that. But I understand that we'll talk about the statistic, we'll talk about the meta, we'll talk about some decks. But overall, I want to hear it, Cozy. What do you think about Grandmaster?
Yeah, I said I would die on the hill that he's good. I think so. I mean, he's not jumping off the page performance-wise, maybe on some win rates, but we are seeing him being played. We just talked about some of the best decks, and there's a Destroy deck with Dracula. He's in there that just got second place on a tournament. Grandmaster is an awesome card. I think he's an awesome card for fun. He's great for competitive play, for combos, and for what the hell just happened plays. And that's what I'm looking for, tied in with flexibility and future proof. I think we're going to see a lot of Grandmaster and synergy in the future, which is, I think, why both of us loved him as a card. We definitely don't see anyone doing what Grandmaster does. And when I get that little report at the end of the month, man, I can promise you it's going to say your most played card was Grandmaster by a fair margin. I've tried him in every archetype, and I'm ready to talk, man. I'm ready to talk because I'm excited to see what you enjoyed him in and your overall impressions. Maybe I'll dial it back. I could say maybe I gave maybe like a 4.5 is where I would give him maybe 4 on ultimate future competitive viability. I don't think he's going to get buffed or nerfed. I think 2-0 is about where he needs to be because I don't know what you would do with him. I don't think you want him at 2-1. You don't want him to have power.
It's interesting that you say that because, as I said, I played a lot of this card and I found it to be very successful. My question to you is that, like, there's two ways you can approach a buff. It's 2-0. There's only so much you can do. You can make it 2-1, or you can make it a 1-1 or a 1-0. Those are 3, I guess, right? And all of those buffs, I feel like, could send him a little off the deep end, despite the stats. Now, stats-wise, in post-infinite, he's running a 46% win rate, slightly negative on the cubes, at a 13% meta share. So the stats aren't good. They're not good.
Not surprised.
However, I feel like there's been a couple things happening. One, I think he's a good card that needs to have his code cracked. It's that simple. We said it last week. No one on the first day was going to have the best Grandmaster deck. It was just never going to happen. And it's going to be one of those cards that ages like fine wine because it's going to have that synergy, that deck, and it's going to be an irreplaceable cog for that deck. It's going to happen, right? I know it's going to happen because it's so combo centric. And when that deck comes up, people say, how do I replace Grandmaster? And you can't, right? But the thing I want to say is that despite the stats, despite all that stuff, what I was seeing in my experience with this card, again, I played more of this card than I've ever played on any release because of the Twitch drops and stuff like that. People were playing way too many wild, greedy-ass decks.
Of course.
I'm sorry. I just got to say it. They were playing with the greediest stuff. And at the end of the day, I felt like if you took Grandmaster for what it was, put it into much more simplistic shells, allowed it to be a good card, not like this crazy mega combo piece, but just a good card that re-amplifies what your deck's trying to do, it's shown far brighter.
The way to look at him is he's just like, he helps fill the role of a piece that you didn't get. Maybe you didn't get a Carnage that you needed, so you can do a Venom twice, on a Nimrod. Maybe you want to do another discard, you can do it with that. He's an absorbing man in some ways for a cheaper cost, and so there'd be times where, like, I'll have him in my hand, but I don't have to use him. It was nice to have him as an insurance policy, or I try to use him really early on, and I did get that benefit. Listen, as respectfully as possible, I could give a damn on the stats on this guy. I really don't care. I've made a lot of combo decks in the past. One example, and this isn't like, I'm great, I suck at whatever. There was an on-reveal combo deck I played. Probably the best that I've played a deck this season. I did a lot of it on Twitch. I have about 100 games on it. I'm at 64%. Awesome. I released a deck guide. It's at 46%. Why? Because it's a combo deck, man. Of course, people that are not going to be great in the mass publics of toxic decks, of combo decks, for a few reasons. But one of them is something I suffer with. you want to see the combo play out. So people are playing out hands, playing out decks that they shouldn't. You should retreat, but you played out because it's a combo deck. You want to see the 20 Tigers happen, even if you had no way to beat a null at 40 power in the far lane. And so the stats, I really don't. I'm not freaked out about it. It's the same way as Junk has been in the past, and he's definitely serving the purpose that I thought he would serve for sure.
Yeah, you're reinforcing what I was saying, that I felt like the convoluted combos that were heavily dependent on draws and combinations, they were just a little too far gone. And like, okay, let's just talk about it straight off the bat. Like, let's talk about like how much is enough for Grandmaster. This is a question I was asking myself when I was deck building with Grandmaster, right? I tried so many different lists. And the question was what is enough? So Coccia, I'll ask this. So let's say the worst case scenario, you play Iceman on turn 1 and you play Grandmaster on 2. Is that enough?
It's fine. It's definitely a good combo. It's a good. That's
okay.
Probably one of the better 1-2s. Yeah.
Yeah. So Korg ×2 in a Darkhawk shell.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, not that bad. Yondu in some sort of null destroy shell.
Yep.
Null shell. Maybe?
Yes on a lot of these. Are you doing? And this is going to be a great conversation. Are you doing these always on 1-2 if you have that? Because I'll be honest, on the rock slide, on the Darkhawk one, I'm seeing if I can get a rock slide to then play later. For sure.
If I have Ravonna in my hand, I'm holding him.
Okay.
But if I don't have Ravonna in my hand, I'll play him out. But here's another thing. How about Selene ×2? Here's an interesting synergy that I didn't see people talking about. I was experimenting with. If you play Selene on Grandmaster, Grandmaster gets hit with the Selene. Yep. He becomes an Annihilus target. And then you draw, and then you have a chance to draw into a Hob or a Green Goblin. And then when you play Grandmaster down, you re-trigger the Selene, right? They're getting wrecked in their hand. And then now the Goblin is dropping as well.
Yep.
Grandmaster gets kicked over with Annihilus. So like, that's pretty cool too. But then what I really started to notice was, okay, where was he performing the best? We'll talk about decks in a second, Cozy, but tell me about this. I found him most successful with Ravonna on turn 2, right, then on turn 3, either Black Widow or Rockslide. And then turn 4, you play the Grandmaster for 1 plus a 3-powered card or 3-costed card, right? Whether it's like a even a Darkhawk early, whatever. It doesn't really, you don't really want to do that, Darkhawk early, but you know what I mean, right? Playing him for 1 and reprocking that Rockslide or reprocking that Black Widow, that is insane. 2 Widow's Bites denying 2 draws from a hand for 1 cost. That's ridiculous. I don't care what anyone says. That's a damn good card. Rock Slide, now you have 4 rocks in someone's deck and you committed 1 energy to it. Keeping in mind that Ravonna Renslayer is synergizing with almost your entire package. That's a damn good card. So when I saw people saying that like, oh, Grandmaster sucks. I'm like, well, no, the decks you're putting them in sucks. And like I was watching it, I was looking at Untapped and these decks don't make sense because they're too friggin' greedy. And they were using the card in a manner that it wasn't intended to be used. If you just simplify things a little bit, you'll get a better result.
And just like, I don't know, even my opinion, guys, like just don't listen to opinions on the first couple of days. I mean, we try our best to give you an opinion. I think you're going to see that no matter what. Day of the deck now. It used to be the day after. Now I have to put them out because we got 90 other videos going out the day of. So I've joined the party there of giving our best thoughts on what he can do. And I think it was cool that he came out doing Twitch drops because it allowed for a lot of experimentation. Saw a lot of bounce. I just did not like him in bounce personally. I think big brain wise, maybe that's where he can be. I haven't seen the proof in the pudding there. Funny, the reason I love this card, bro, is a couple reasons. Number one, like guys, I don't know. I can't bleep this out. I'll just say F the meta. Like just, guys, we're on a year plus into this game. I'm just trying to have it, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to have as much fun as possible. Like I'm just having fun with Marvel Snap, and I think he's the definition of it, right? I'm playing Grandmaster later, which is why I love the card, right? Like you could play him on curve. I tend to see him with the most value. I'm loving Wong, and I'm loving Arnim Zola. Those are by far the 2 standouts for me. And why? It's because you do have Ravonna synergy for the Arnim Zola. If you Arnim Zola and you play Grandmaster, I don't even care what dies, what gets copied. That's popping off, right? Been doing a lot of in the Toxic one. I did just hands down. I played Scorpion, played Grandmaster. I snapped on that. -2 to the hand. Enjoy. Have fun with whatever that was, right? Deadpool. I was playing Deadpool Carnage, played Deadpool back in the middle, played Grandmaster, send the Carnage. Simplified plays, like you said. You don't always go for the home run. You have to identify, I think it's the skill of identifying what's in your hand, what's left in your deck, and what's the optimal Grandmaster play for that moment?
I love what you're saying here because it's very much the difference in like the deck building approach I take and the deck building approach you take often, right? And it's one of the reasons why we have so much fun discussing new cards and discussing decks, because you love the pop-off combo. Whereas for me, I tend to be, okay, play by the lines, play kind of like more efficiently, just play it on curve, make it like you don't have to reach for the stars all the time. Right? Hitting Black Widow twice is damn good. Hitting Rockslide twice is damn good, right? Hitting Iceman twice is damn good, right? And when you add Ravonna to the mix, then it's even better. And honestly, a lot of the shells are actually performing pretty well. And listen, I don't mean to tap myself on the back, but I'm going to anyways, Cozy. One of the highest win rate versions of Grandmaster right now is actually a list that I developed live on Twitch TV, and it is a Grandmaster Black Bolt list. You talked about Black Bolt on your side about how good it was, and I was trying to bite my tongue like, hell yeah, I know how good it is, because look at this list. We had Korg, Grandmaster, Jeff, Ravonna Renslayer, we had Mystique, Black Widow, Rockslide, Darkhawk, Iron Man, Stature Black Bolt, and Doctor Doom. It's running a 54% win rate, nearly 55% on 1,300 games. You're going to tell me that Grandmaster's not positively contributing to that? And there's no pop-off synergy there. It's just good. It's just good. And what you're doing is you're playing Darkhawk on turn 6 for 3 energy. You're playing Mystique for the 2. And guess what? Then you got an extra energy for the Stature.
Let's go, Coccia. Let's go, man. Yeah, I think where he lived up where I thought he would was, first of all, these deck shells, I love it. On reveal, yes. We see, like, day one, so many people would just take a list off of, let's say, Untap, throw in Grandmaster, hope it worked. It didn't, right? He took some real tailoring to make work in these lists, right? I was going to go through some of the on reveals that I think he just elevates. I think he elevated Ironheart to be a much better card than she was. Talk about a card 100%. That gets absolutely boosted, right? I think Surfer is just very tough to play with him. I think it's not that it doesn't work all the time. It's just it's a lot of thought process. It's definitely a high skill cap Surfer card, I guess is the best way to put it there. But he does have a lot of easy and good value. Bro, I've been loving him in tech builds. Like, just using tech cards twice has been kind of awesome. I don't know if you messed around with that at all. That was definitely something unique. And then, Jubilee, it really comes back to my second love, Arrow being the first. Discount Disrupt was right there after her buff. Been there, loved her. Ravonna, we talked about her. The Ravonna synergy makes the most sense. It just makes the most sense with the cards you're trying to play. It's a little shocking that Iron Man's not making all these lists, but she's definitely a huge cog in that machine.
And again, like, this has been the first week, and we're talking about a plethora of different cards, some of which have been considered weak for some time, that are getting this resurgence with Grandmaster. Another perfect example of this is Master Mold. Like, tell me you didn't play at all this week and did not get 4 friggin' Sentinels in your hand because someone plays Master Mold and then they play the Ravonna. Not Ravonna, sorry, they play Grandmaster. And like, you're just, what do you do? You just don't even draw cards anymore because you got Master Molded ×2. We
flirted, remember, at the end with the Ronin at the last Snapchat? We were like, wait a second, Ronin, maybe that would be cool. And then, Ronin list came out, man. And that's the goal of the Snapchat. You know, people are always concerned about making the best. We are trying to just hypothesize super fun combos, and we hope that you guys bust them wide open and make some really cool decks and just inspire thought, because we don't even have, well, we had a lot of time this week to test everything out, but that's the main goal. If we can serve that purpose, I think that's what we're really hoping we can do. And to me, it is what we just kind of stated, whether it was the Toxic list with Scorpion that I played, or you used the Debris to double Debris, which was just stupid filthy because you were able to move your Debris and make room. It was really cool and worked in synergy. And then to your point too, the Master Mold. Where it didn't work is things like Valkyrie. Not that it's not great with Valkyrie, but in my experience, it wasn't working in decks that only had like one card that you want to Grandmaster, right? You need a couple cheap ones in there that just have like that decent synergy, right?
And that's why I said, if you have 1-drops that are okay to play, if you don't have Ravonna and you're holding your Grandmaster, be like, well, I want to play on curve, and you just do it, while also having the turn 3 and 4 pop-offs, that's absolutely fine, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, don't try to force this card to be what it's not.
Dude, I was not a fan of Nico. I saw so many Nico Menard. I love Nico guys, but you got to know when you have to, like, detach from a card sometimes. Like, Nico does work really well, but it was like a little funky. Like, she's a little funky with Grandmaster, and she kind of takes up one thing it took me time, man, is really perfecting my right and left lane management, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I was really kind of like, well, I can play Nico now, but the right lane is unplayable. Like, do I even, like, bother play? Because then I don't know about you, I lost a couple 50-50 on reveal, hoping Grandmaster sent the right card. He didn't, whatever that may be. I mean, Alex, one of my favorite combos that I've been playing with is you can do Shuri twice, which is awesome. It's crazy. It's super fun. If you have the cards perfect, you can play Shuri. You do have to have some turn manipulation, but I brought back the She-Hulk Shuri deck where you're able to skip so that you could double She-Hulk, play a Grandmaster, and then that leaves you a little bit of room to double something again in the middle.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, those were like classic Shuri decks where people. So the Shuri change had just happened where basically she had to play in the same lane and everyone was taking Shang-Chi in. And so people were using the ability to skip the turn in order to dodge the Shang-Chi so they could play a one-costed She-Hulk into that with the Taskmaster in the other lane, right? We saw that for a while, actually. You kind of bring me back in time. That deck build kind of fell off, Coccia. Yeah, hopefully I get to see you kind of do a little brewing with that. I like it. But one thing I'll mention as well is, I'll bring it up on the screen again, but the deck we were talking about before with the kind of Black Bolt Stature Grandmaster deck, there's nothing really crazy inventive about it. There's really nothing crazy. There's no crazy tech. It's just two good shells put together that work. It's good cards that work with Grandmaster, and that's all it ultimately needed. It didn't need all these crazy, like, convoluted combos. It just needed good cards and to be played with some reasonable kind of intentions, right? So I just wanted to highlight that sometimes we get our hands on these cards, maybe we overthink it. We just overthink it a bit. And ultimately, I think that time is going to really shine brightly on this card. And if it gets buffed, then for me, it's gravy. I was high on Ravonna when she was in the dumpster. I never believed she'd have been buffed to a 2-3. I still can't believe she's a 2-3. I think she's better than that, and I'll keep riding it. I don't care.
I won't go into too much detail because I have a deck guide coming up shortly, so I'll let that do it. But my favorite Grandmaster deck is discard. That's all I can say on the matter, is discard. That's where I found the best win rate, and I do think he is going to be a staple in there. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there, buddy. But
I can't wait to see it, buddy. We just finished talking about how discard needed something, and now here we go. Cozy's getting excited.
It's good. I'm only at, here's the thing, because I don't even want to talk too much on it yet, mainly because I'm at 30. Let me look at the stats on 32 games. Okay, 32 games. But in 32 games, 64.5%. Not mad about it. Not mad about it. We'll see. We'll see if it lasts. I got to play a lot more of it, and we'll have to see. But yes, Grandmaster, at the end of the day, he does something that no one else does. You also get pretty good cards alongside him if you don't have those. I think he's one of the more interesting ones to come out, and I think people might regret not having him. We'll have to see.
Final rankings, you said about 4.5?
Final rankings, yeah. If you combined everything with like the future proof and everything, yeah, I think I'm good with 4.5 all down the hill.
Yeah, I'm staying at 4. I think people would have expected me to drop off, and I'm like, no. I think this card's a 4-star card for me. I mean, listen, actual performance-wise, first week, it's probably close to a 3.
Yeah.
But as someone who played an absolute asinine amount of this card, I am confident in saying this is a 4-star card.
That's the best way to put it. Yeah. I think so too. Like, I think if you, show me the stats, like, awesome, cool. He sucks, don't get him. Like, I think he is going to be good in the future.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our top 10 cards in Marvel Snap, sorted by win rate and positive cube rate. These stats have been sourced from Untapped using post-infinite stats, and there's a lot of interesting things here. First of all, the win percentages are much tighter than traditional because I think the game's balance is much tighter than usual, and we don't have these crazy outliers. So on aggregate, we're seeing decks that are a little tighter. Now, what I will say is that I want you guys to guess, maybe a couple cards down in the comments section below. Give us like a couple cards. Give us your top 10, give us your top 5, top 3, whatever you want. But I bet you're not going to guess number 1 because I double checked, triple checked, and then cross-sectioned other stat sites to make sure. I was like, are you kidding me, guys? We got some spicy stuff in this list here. We're going to start at number 10, Cozy. And there's no surprises here. At approximately a 50.7% win rate, it's Alioth. Alioth, the big purple monster, has fallen off from its prior kind of perch near the top of the meta. I mean, it's still annoying. We're seeing less of it. It was shadow buffed to a 6-3 for about an hour. I wonder if that was intentional or not. But Alioth comes in at number 10.
They're always changing the power that I'm like conflicting myself. Like I was playing a C3 deck the other day, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, wait, Alioth's in here for the final. Wait, no, is he 6'2"? Is he 6'3"? I'm always confused now what he is. I'll say this. I don't have a problem with the card. I know some people really hate him. I feel like I don't see him enough, and now when I'm seeing him, it's in the decks that I thought I would be. Like, you deserve to lose if you play a lockdown deck and you're losing and it's turn 5 and there's one location to play. You got to know by now. You got to know Elias going to be in that deck. He was in Destroy a little bit. You know, people were trying to make him work with Grandmaster a little bit, which is fun. But I'm kind of okay with him. He's kind of...
Yeah, I feel like I'm okay with Elias for the most part as well. Like, I do agree. He's becoming increasingly more predictable, although there are times, like, it's kind of frustrating. Where it's frustrating is when, like, you're not sure if they have Elias and the deck shouldn't probably have Elias. You're down 2 locations and you have, like, an Orca and you're like, I could play it. I could win. They're not... But if he plays Elias, I just lose. And you, like, retreat. And, like, they're like, I don't know why they retreated there. I wasn't that. You know what I mean? It's like
PTSD.
I think you said it weeks ago. Like, you'd want to know, like, hopefully on the month report, they're like, you gave away this many cubes to Elias players who did not draw Elias.
Yeah, dude. And also, it's like your live flashing before your eyes. It's actually on my one of my latest YouTube videos where, like, it's an 8-cuber. And I'm like, oh, middle lane, right lane, middle lane. I'm like, let's go right lane. It was like a hazmat, so it didn't matter, right? So I played them all right lane. And then Elias was played in the middle, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like because I went back and forth for so long, which one to play, and I wasn't even guessing an Elias, right? So he does have that effect, and I think it's good, kind of that exists. He's a release valve in some ways. He just can't be too good.
Absolutely. And we're going to go to number 9 here, and it's Jeff the Baby Landshark at 50.7%, slightly higher cube rate than Galactus. Now, again, these win rates seem low, but I confirmed these are untapped, latest patch, post-infinite. This is what we're looking at, right? Like, it's quite interesting to see that these win rates have been compressed as much as they have. But Jeff the Baby Landshark running at a 21% meta share. I'll add that Elias was 11%, right? Jeff's at 21%.
21, dude. That's 1 in 5 game. I think that's also why he's just like has such a good win rate. Like, Jeff's a good card. I'm like not like I have been taking Jeff's out of some of my lists. Maybe it's because I'm like bored of him. Because he's in a lot of decks that do good. Like, right? They just do good on aggregate. So his stats will be good on aggregate. Not saying that he's not an incredible card. I feel like, though, like, he's fine. He's good. Like, he's really, really good. But, like, now that Pro X has kind of been tamed down a bit and Miss Marvel needing to. That being said, pretty much every list has Jeff, right? Like, just so many lists have him because he's just good value, stats, utilization, all of it.
Absolutely. And I mean, listen, I'm a believer of Jeff. I always have been. It's one of my favorite cards in the game. And really, it is what all 2-drops are judged by, right? Like, does it compete with Jeff the Baby? Does it displace Jeff the Baby Landshark in a deck? And that's kind of where you judge. Going to number 8 here, we do have Silver Samurai, which is a bit of a surprise to me. Silver Samurai running a 50.9% win rate, but only a 1.7% meta share. And I mean, Cozy, you literally talked about this on your end there when we talked about the top decks of Marvel Snap. You were talking about that the discard Silver Samurai deck. So why don't you run us through what you've been seeing?
I mean, it just makes sense because he is built to be great in the deck that he's in, right? So is these stats on seen in deck or played? What is these stats on? I don't know.
I believe these are when they're just in the deck.
They're in the deck. That makes sense. So that deck does like really well. And if Silver Samurai is played, you are benefiting off that with X23 or getting rid of Dock and Shard. And most of the time, especially now, think about these cards. Null, Blob, Arnim Zola. These are cards that are really, really good and they're dependent on. Or Elias, and you get rid of them. And that's such a massive advantage because it's the lowest power card. And so definitely, he's just solid that way. And it doesn't surprise me that we're starting to see some. I bet you we might see other cards in that deck because it's so good, dude. It's like a Sarah control deck.
Absolutely. And you know what? It did surprise me to see Silver Samurai performing as well as it does. But again, a very niche card. And I do find that this card, because of the shells it's playing in, is going to be more disruptive than something like just a regular Black Bolt or like a Darkhawk shell, because you're not discarding a rock under most, you're discarding a piece of their pie, right? So it's pretty interesting to see that Silver Samurai has had like a disruptive element to its play. Then we go to number 7. Cozy, you're gonna be so happy about this. Believe it or not, it's Arrow. I don't think a lot of people would have believed that Arrow's win rate was this high, only at 1.8% meta share, but it's coming in at 7 overall with a positive cube gain and a very decent, respectful win rate. The card is seeing additional play in the like mobster move style decks, but I think that the 5/9 is just decent stats while providing quite a bit of disruption that's pretty tailorable depending on your game situation.
Oh man, I love it. I mean, I love it for a couple of reasons, because Arrow is Arrow, and I love Arrow, but there's something special about seeing an OTA and or balance patch kind of work itself out over time, and we continue to see that. I mean, heck, yourself, you were definitely like, I don't know, Arrow. I tested them all. I wasn't crazy about it at first. This was a while back ago, right? There's accounts that just like love. They hate themselves so much that they want to like post just hate on the game. Like, I think that's the main purpose of some of these accounts. But they were like, Arrow is terrible in every way you look at it compared to the old Arrow. And it's like, okay, it's just not. She's good. You can tell. What's her win rate? What was it at?
It was at a flat 51% at a 0.11 cube rate.
It's surprising. It is. And maybe because you're getting the displacement and then you're having the 9 power, only 3 less than Magneto of the stat stick. And then you're playing on Kingpin too most of the time. So you're getting this like massive flip. She's not played in a ton of decks, but it just speaks that, Mobster's doing so well. I'm surprised Magneto's not mentioned yet, if not at all.
Magneto actually does not make this list at all. And again, it's worth noting that these are post-infinite stats. The win rates are significantly higher if you include prior to infinite because of the bot inflation and stuff like that. But yeah, Arrow is definitely a performer. And Magneto does not make this list, ironically.
It's because Magneto's in the Helidex, and sometimes it just, I don't know, what does it just go out there and just doesn't get it done?
Yeah, but that's right, though. But there are cards like Hela, for instance, which are low win rate but higher cube rate, right?
Yeah.
And so like those types of things will definitely play a factor. But what the next card is, what do you got? We're number 6 here? Are we number 6? Yeah, we're number 6. Number 6 is the good boy, the good big boy, and it's Lockjaw. Lockjaw coming in at 51.1%, 10.5% of the meta. It's definitely gained in popularity both in Thanos and obviously like Black Knight discard and pretty much Hela discard. It's everywhere right now. Cozy, what do you think of the big old dog?
Yeah, man, Lockjaw is just fun. I love to see Lockjaw in discard again. Way back, it was around November 2022. So right when Snap came out. I think it's still like a top 3 most popular video that I have. I don't know why it popped off, but it did. Discard Lockjaw was in that video. Do you remember that the early days of Discard Lockjaw and how good that was? It's so cool to see him back in, not just like, I'm going to pump Thanos stones into him until the dog is just like desperate. Like I love to see more use out of him, and Discard Lockjaw is such a fun way to play it.
It's funny. It was a fun way to play, but it was also a stressful way to play it because, like, at the time, Blade, for instance, which was a primary target, Blade was hitting hell every time. It didn't have Blade wasn't what it is now. It was like, I'm discarding whatever the hell I want to discard, right? Yep. Usually exactly. I don't know if you do this, Cozy. I do this. When I used to play Blade or like Swordmaster or something, I would like intentionally like not look at the screen because I'm like, if I look at it, it's going to discard what I'm looking at.
Yo, I still do that. I still will do like Gambit. I'll stare at, my Modok and I'm like, just don't do it. And then just surely enough, it's like, no, shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so I definitely do that as well. As we move on to our next card, number 5, and dare I say, Cozy, you call it. We're talking about the best decks. This is where Black Bolt makes a comeback here, and it's funny. I said, hey, Black Bolt can be a 5/9. I actually don't think that Black Bolt itself is the reason why its win rate is what I feel like. It's like the shell is working so well because usually it's discarding a rock or discarding. I think it can definitely be 5/8 power still, but it's running a 51.3% win rate and a 0.9% of the meta, less than a percentage of the meta, which surprises me considering how good those decks actually are. After this video, I would expect that the play rate of Black Bolt should increase. If it doesn't, I don't know what else Cozy and I can do to tell you that Black Bolt's stature and even just like any deck featuring Black Bolt is actually pretty strong right now. We've talked about it multiple times, but yeah, Black Bolt's back.
Good card decks, man. Miles Morales, stature, Black Bolt. They're just good. They're good. Been trying to make lists like that work more and more. Definitely fun.
Top 4 now. We're into the number 4, and Cozy, this is where you get a little bit of validation. This was a card in August that you were pumping as hard as you could pump, saying this was going to be a meta-defining card, and you nailed it. It's X23. X23 at a 51.5% win rate, 5.6% of the meta, an absolute staple in Destroy. There's very rarely a Destroy deck that does not feature X23. You called it. You said this card was going to be an absolute staple in discard. And it has been. It has been.
I appreciate it. Yeah, Destroy. It feels like a card that if you don't have Destroy, you're at a significant disadvantage. I mean, just significant. It just does so well, like getting you to be able to play Null early, and then, or most importantly, killing her on turn 5, playing Deadpool and Null. That's a very important combo that you want to make sure you hit. Or just getting things out earlier. The more stuff you can destroy, the better, and it just allows you to do more and more of that. And then, of course, that Black Bolt list, you're able to do the same with, something like Silver Samurai. You can, get rid of X23, discard it. A lot of unique ways to play her, and definitely is just a good card.
Absolutely. And you even see people like, man, I got my Hulk Buster. I'll throw in an X23.
Yeah,
what's the worst that can happen?
Because
right?
it can't die.
I'm just generating value.
It can't die. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or Forge. Yep.
She's been very flexible, much more flexible than perhaps initially anticipated. Now we're into our top three. Top three, Cozy. There's a couple surprises here, but two of them are kind of, let's say they're holding hands. They go hand in hand with each other. And the first, at number 3, is going to be Darkhawk. This actually surprised me, but not surprised me, considering the nerf to Blob. Darkhawk comes in at number 3 to 5.6% of the meta. I've been playing a lot of Darkhawk. I like Darkhawk. I think he's fine. I think he's back. If you're playing against a Thanos-based player and you know that they're playing the Blob-based shell, then you have to be, a little hesitant if they're snapping going into turn 5 or 6. So you just got to know the game. You got to know the meta. You got to know the opponent matchups and expect the unexpected, or to be honest with you, just expect the expected. They're going to blob you, right? So Darkhawk, number 3.
Is Shang-Chi on this list?
No, he's not on the list.
That
but he's
blows
the
my
highest
mind.
play rate.
That blows my mind, though, right? Like, win rate wise, I feel like by lose rate, like, which card do you think you lose to the most?
Card I lose to the most? Man, that's such a good question. I don't think it's Shang-Chi, and it's not Eliath. Like, Shang-Chi does take me by surprise very often. I feel like I lose to Death a lot because I'm like, where's Death gonna go? Do they even have it? Is it free yet? I wasn't doing the math because I just never do it because I'm lazy. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's one of the cards that catches me by surprise a lot. So, I mean, Eliath doesn't catch me anymore because I think I play too cautious, as we joke about all the time. But, I don't know, Cozy. How about you?
I think it might be Shang-Chi. Not that I don't anticipate it on, like, my big card or whatever. It's got to be that SOB. Like, I feel like the game's... or it's probably, for me, at this current state, it's Magneto and then Shang-Chi.
I wonder if we were to do it by cube rate, top down, I wonder if Shang-Chi's higher because of the surprise factor.
We'll have to see. So we have...
That's a topic for another week.
So Darkhawk at 3, 2-1.
Number 2 is going to be Rockslide, which makes perfect sense. Almost identical statistics to the Darkhawk. Slightly higher win rate at a 51.7, but again, a 5.3% play rate. And remember, Rockslide was recently nerfed from a 3-5, was it, to a 3-3? Was it 3-5?
Dude, it was correctly? A 4-cost card at one point.
Originally.
That's so weird.
With no Darkhawk synergy. It's just like pump rocks and deck. No one played Rockslide.
Dude, I can't believe it was a 4-cost at some point, right? Like, he feels great at 3-cost. Yeah, I love Rockslide. Man, it doesn't feel bad when you get rocks on the opposing end of it, but he also, like, feels like a kind of a stall play. Pumping 2 rocks is great, but if you don't get those rocks as the opponent, you're just kind of like, well, they wasted turn 3. Not that they wasted it, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think he's great. I think he's perfect for what he does. Really well statted. I don't think he will get an adjustment. No,
I don't think he gets an adjustment either. You're right. He was a 4-6, I think it was. And he got nerfed to a 4-5, then brought down to a 3-3, which is ironic for me because I think that, like, at 3-3, you just hey, that's like free Zabu. It's basically a free Zabu now, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Because you're playing him for the effect, not so much the power. The power was nice too. Number 1, this is going to be contentious, and I triple checked the stats, to be clear, and I was surprised. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? This actually makes sense. It makes sense because of what we're seeing in the meta right now. Number 1 top rune rate card. Cozy showing Quicksilver. It ain't Quicksilver, Cozy. It is Black Cat. I could not believe it. Black Cat at a 52.1% win rate, 4.3% of the meta. But you know what? We talked about it on your side. We have... the discard decks with Black Knight running Black Cat very often. Those decks are high performing. Hela most of the very high win rate Hella decks are running Black Cat because it's just a free 9 that gets discarded for free. You don't have to worry about. It gets discarded early, and if you lockjaw your Hella, at least you're bringing Black Cat back. Black Cat actually makes sense. And I don't think anybody would have had that on their bingo card. To the point, I checked multiple websites. I'm like, is Black Cat's win rate actually this high? And it is high. It's it's crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Hella's just going wild. Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Discard's dead, but we have, and not that these are in your traditional discard shells we used to talk about, but Black Cat, X23, Black Bolt, Silver Samurai. That's a lot of discard on the top 10, man. That's crazy. Is this the past 30 days, I'm guessing, or something like that? The past month of data?
So the way it worked was it was post-infinite, latest patch.
Was Great Portal.
The latest patch. So it would have incorporated any... no, that would have excluded any locations, actually. So
Great Portal, yeah, no, it would have had the location. It would have to, right? Like Great Portal gave you plus 10. That was a huge hella time. Maybe they got like a small spike there. Does it include? I don't know. I'm not sure. But either way, it doesn't surprise me. Hella and Black Cat. Well, okay. It does surprise me at number 1.
Yeah, it should surprise you. It surprised me.
I guess it's just weird that it's like it's Black Cat that gets the spot and not like Hella or whatever. But I guess because she's not in that many decks, but she's only in these decks, right? Like she doesn't, her performance doesn't squander. I just thought maybe Black Bolt would be much higher. She has a 4% play rate too, dude. That's insane.
4.3%. Black Bolt's at 0.9, which is crazy to me. And like, again, I double checked these stats, man. I couldn't believe it myself. But that's what makes a very interesting conversation on the Snapchat. And now it's time for our favorite segment that we do every single week, and that is the Snapchat Mailbag. If you have a question you'd like to ask Coccia and I, let us know down below in the comments with Mailbag and, of course, your question. We're getting started with question number 1 from Samuel, and it reads, with the confirmation of album improvements, what albums are you most anticipating for the future? For me, I hope to do an album with the noir variants.
It's a good one. It's got to be Pixels, right? Like, I feel like it has to be Pixels because I just want to see. I want to know. I hope they give out like a grand, like bad looking, but pixel as the final prize, like some horde pixel. Just like seal off the hate they get. But Max Krek, I think would be cool too. I have a lot of Max Krek variants. Would love to see Ryan Gonzalez, another great artist. Would love to see that as an album. My favorite artist in Snap. Obviously, we already have Dan Hip, but more of those.
I absolutely agree. I do think that the Pixel one's a good call, and I think they need to focus more on the 700 gold ones as well.
Yeah,
because those are accessible by everybody through the collection track. Like you can get 700 gold variants as part of your like progression, right? So I think that keeps people engaged with the system, gets them rewards, keeps them engaged with the game, which is a good thing. And then of course I want to see the Archer ones eventually and stuff like that, right? But ultimately, I don't know if they answered this in the Q&A, but I think they said that they do intend on have pretty much every variant eventually in an album of some sort, collectible, achievable, and providing you with some sort of progression. So at least that's good. I'm glad that albums are getting touched up.
Yeah, I'm ready to see them, man. We got the other ones at like Christmas, and now it's let's go. Let's get more albums. I'm ready to see them.
Question number 2 comes from the FBI agent 69420. Had to read that full name. How would you guys feel about a card mechanic that revolved around the snapping mechanic? Maybe like a high stated 4 cost that automatically snaps for you once it's revealed or can only be played if you have snapped. It's Marvel Snap, and I love to see cards based around the snap mechanic.
Yeah,
love the show, guys.
That's a fire idea, man. I love that. I love the specifically like the 4 cost shout out where like you have to have had to snap already, or it's like a 412 and it just snaps for you no matter what, right? And like you're just kind of like all in on the YOLO effect. That's really cool. I thought he was going to go more. There's a data mine Mephisto. He was like a 6-0. If you play him, you double the odds. You can get 16 cubes or whatever, which is really cool as well. But I like that idea, man.
I was leaning towards like a card that gets like +5 or something if your opponent has snapped. That seems really cool. Like a defensive card where it's like they snap and then your card just gets buffed. That's like a defensive, like, no. Like that almost could be Captain America, honestly. Captain America's shield. It's like, oh, you're snapping? Boom! The shield comes up. Cap's worth +5, or like he does +2 across the board, or gets a blue Marvel effect, or I don't know, man. I'm just making stuff up. But
that's cool,
I thought of this defensive card that would be cool. So
dude, there's so much great custom card design thought processes, and we're starting to see some of them creep into the game too. So fire idea, buddy.
Absolutely. And question number 3 comes from Joker NPC. I've been finding the climb from 90 to 100 harder than before. The bot matchmaking always seemed to have the answer, but it's been so much harder the past 3 months than the previous 3 months before. I hate having to try and grind out 90 for 3 or 4 weeks. I get no chance to have fun in ranked at all because I'm stuck grinding the same decks. Has anything changed from rank 90 to 100?
No, it has. But I will tell you this, man. When I was in high school, college, or let's take tennis, for example, and I was on my last set, and I'm like smoking this guy. It's the hardest set to win. Or if it's tied, it's the hardest set to win. If you're in football and you're going into overtime, it's the hardest quarter to win. You're right there. That's just the law of it, right? Like when you're right close to a goal or an objective, it's typically the hardest time, buddy. So my advice is like, almost like try to not picture you're a 90, man. Just play the game. Play the game as you would. Be a little bit more careful on it. But that's just kind of the law of competitiveness and statistics. At least from my experience, that the closer you get, the harder it is because that you want it that much more. You're 8 snapping on 97 because you could get there, but you shouldn't. It's things like that.
There's a couple things I wanted to bring up as well, and I think one of the things is that I think the player base is getting better. There's more information out there. People are much more experienced. Just like yourself, people that are in the 90s are good players. Like they're players that are like well aware of the meta. They got the good decks. They got good collections. So I think the competition has just increased, right? So that's something worth considering. So those are a couple other things worth noting here. Oftentimes, I think people that have a hard time climbing, there's 2 things you can do. First of all, you're often not retreating very often. Like I've kind of watched streams and stuff, like they should probably leave if they care about their cubes, and they stick in games where like they have very low percentage plays. Like for instance, they don't have initiative, and like I'm like, that deck has a Lyth in it, right? Like you're staying in for 8 and like that deck has a Lyth in it, accept the 4 and play it safe, and then they roll and they get smoked, right? The other thing worth noting is if you're having trouble climbing, play a consistent deck that you learn the ins and outs and the snap mechanics on. This kind of gets understated, but when you're playing a very specific deck and you get used to the mechanics of it, you start to identify when you have your snap scenario, right? So I think that when you know when you are ahead statistically and you're able to snap on those times, then I think you have a greater opportunity to climb more effectively. But ultimately, I think people are just getting better, and you're probably way better than you think you are, and I'm sure you'll get to infinite at the end of the day. Our next question comes from I am Barty, and it reads, which single roguelike game describes you and Cozy and their playstyles in Snap? Like, for example, Cozy is Binding of Isaac because he loves combos and breaking the game, and Alex is a Slay the Spire because he's very tactical and builds crazy decks. I got a quick one while you think, Cozy, because I know that's like a bit of a right hook for you there. I'm going to tell you, because it's like, how am I supposed to even answer that? I think that I'm kind of like Hades. And I'll explain why. Because when I'm playing Marvel Snap and I get introduced to a new character like Beta Ray Bill, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and find out more stats. I want to find out more information. I want to find out more about these heroes, and I get drawn into the lore. Hades did that for me. When I was playing with all these different heroes, which apparently I didn't realize half of them were in the Eternals, by the way, which is kind of an interesting thing. But the other side to that was I was like, you know what? I get drawn into the meta. So I feel like with Hades, the story side around it was really interesting. And I get really drawn into the story and the MCU and the comics of Marvel Snap in a way that I never was before. So I'm going to say I'm a little bit like Hades.
Yeah, you can tell who gets these questions ahead of time. I do not, a great example. I'll take your Binding of Alex, buddy. Binding of Alex, I'm going to call it that now. Binding of Isaac. Great idea with the combos thing. So I will steal the answer of the question asker of Binding of Isaac. Great game, by the way, as well as Hades. Hades 2 coming out soon.
I'm going to say that, okay, I had one prepared for you too, Cozy. Have you ever played Enter the Gungeon?
No.
No? Oh, man. So Enter the Gungeon's like this bullet hell game.
Yeah, I know about it. Yeah,
Where like you just collect guns and you just shoot stuff all over the place.
Yeah,
I feel like that's you. Crazy chaos, stuff flying everywhere, combo stuff. Like that's you, baby. That's what anybody that's played Enter the Gungeon, that is Cozy's, analogous Marvel Snap game.
Okay, I'll have to give it a whirl.
Absolutely. And we got one last question here, and it's from Edmund Reeds. With broken cards releasing and getting a nerf or buff later, can Second Dinner go with top Marvel Snap players for testing and balance? I know fighting games do this, but will Marvel Snap?
Probably not. I don't know. I would like for them to. I would like for them to. I don't think it's going to happen.
The thing that I always go back to, I see this get offered a lot. You got to remember that I think that some of the best decks in Snap, they're not always coming from the people you expect them to. When a card gets released to the masses, what happens there is completely unpredictable. Because, I mean, the development team is trying to add additional resources to balance, and even with some like pro players and content creators and stuff helping with balance, it'll never replicate what a full wide scale release will do. It just never will. There'll be someone out there that'll figure something out, that'll break the game, that'll find a way to make a synergy happen, and that will elevate the card in a way that you perhaps never expected. So that's something I would mention.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's times where it's like we could have given advice, you know, like, hey, Blob looks like he's probably going to be pretty crazy, but here's the fun part, and Loki, that's where people point to. How did they not see it, Alex? How did they not see it? I'll tell you how. Go look at reviews. Go look at what we had to say about Blob, what we had to say about Loki. We were high on them, but we were not thinking they were going to break the game. Not even close, right? Like, you can read something and you just don't. We were like, Blob's like a 4-star. He's good, right? Like, wow, his power. We even broke down everything that he would do. And we broke down what he's doing now. Like, there's nothing different on when we broke him down to what he's doing now. There's nothing new discovered. Just in practice, you're like, oh, damn, this is crazy. It's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell.
Absolutely. It's a very difficult job, and once it's in the hands of the masses, there's no way of knowing just what will happen. Thank you guys so much for watching and for supporting our content. Leaving a positive review is generally helpful for helping the podcast get out there amongst the masses. And friends, we'll see you on that next Snapchat episode.